Sound can be a little bit louder, sweetie. So, welcome everybody from a hot and sweaty Israel. Oi. So, it's so good to see you all. Let me do that. I see you all. So, we are somewhere, and I hope that you are somewhere as well. So, when we look to somewhere, of course, somewhere is connected with a location, and a location is connected with space. And this kind of is interesting because, the universe is existing because of there is space and time. So time is the movement, of course, through time, from yesterday to now to tomorrow. And of course, when we look in the whole movement of time, if we center in time, then we center in the now. If we center in space, we center in the here, somewhere here. So why is it important to center into space? And why is this a non-dual quality? Why is this a quality of our consciousness? Because it seems to be so physical. And could it be that consciousness, in a way, is physical, or is it non-physical? What is consciousness? So the first thing is consciousness is a miracle. What is it? It's a mystery. It's a mystery that we are able to be conscious of ourselves and conscious of each other. But that brings us back to, why is somewhere a quality of consciousness? How come? So is consciousness possible to work without a center? When we use our consciousness, I am conscious of you. There is a center, the I, the one who is object or subject, I think. I don't know exactly how to say it, but the one who is conscious of the other. That I think is the subject of the consciousness, and the object of the consciousness is the one who is conscious, but you can kind of turn it around as well. It's just how you look at it. Not very objective, I think, or subjective. But again, when we look, how is it possible that we are conscious? It's possible because there is this center which is consciousness is moving from. If there is no center, how could we be conscious? And that kind of makes it also kind of interesting because, then when we look to the duality of somewhere in perspective of consciousness. So, what would happen with our consciousness if we would move into the everywhere? So, we move basically into everything, everywhere. Are we still conscious? Or is conscious dissolving into the whole? And is this happening now and then? Is conscious dissolving in the whole now and then? And are we then still conscious? And this is also interesting to look into because, when we fall asleep, for instance, first what's happening is, we lay down and we start to relax. And then our thoughts are becoming a little bit random. It's very difficult when you're kind of in a busy mind or your mind is full with, a problem solving, or you think about what you have to do tomorrow to fall asleep. Our mind needs to dissociate a little bit. It needs to fall apart a little bit. Our thoughts are kind of starting to become more and more associative, and slowly they dissolve. And then there is this moment of stillness. And often we fall asleep before this moment of stillness is there. But if you can stay awake till the moment of stillness, this is extremely pleasant. It's like a deep meditation. And being in this deep meditation and you move slowly into sleep, then what you feel is that everything starts to dissolve. It dissolves in the whole. And then there is, for a moment, no consciousness, no conscious awareness. We are gone. Our consciousness is everywhere. It's basically dissolved, maybe in the source of consciousness or in a bigger consciousness, but we are not conscious of that. And then after a while, we start to dream. And then again, our consciousness is somewhere again. It got a center point. We are conscious of our dream if we remember our dreams. So there is this movement in sleep, but also during daytime, that consciousness is dissolving at certain moments. If we move to one train of thought or one train of experience or experiences to another train of thought and another train of experiences. If we move from thinking to action, then there is this moment where consciousness is dissolving. It's dissolving and, in a way, recreated from thinking about something into action, as an example. From one train of thought into the next train of thought, or from thinking into experiencing or feeling. So there is this movement from somewhere into everywhere, and through the nowhere back into somewhere. It is a kind of circulation where we dissolve and then we come back through the nowhere, which kind of, if you read it in a different way, is now here into the center again. This is a beautiful movement when we think about it. But what would happen if we would kind of move with our consciousness in the other direction? So we lose our consciousness not in the everywhere where we dissolve in a way, but in the nowhere where we lose our consciousness, literally. So can you kind of think of examples when you kind of literally lose your consciousness? When you get a bash on the head, for instance. Or you lose consciousness, literally by an accident, when you move into coma, maybe, when you faint. It's all kind of examples which are quite violent when we look into it. It's like, the light of consciousness is out, gone. We fall into nowhere. And when we fall into nowhere, when this happens, you get a bash on the head or you faint. There is this moment again, no consciousness, nowhere. And where somewhere can be both in darkness but also in light, nowhere, as far as my experience is moving through darkness. It's nothing, nowhere, no consciousness. And what's happening then? Are we moving through everywhere back to consciousness? Or is it moving in a different way? Is it kind of, moving from nowhere into kind of a reborn of the center again, towards somewhere? And this is interesting because, I'm talking about experiences, but if we move from somewhere to nowhere and back to somewhere, when this movement is coming forward, and maybe everywhere is somewhere there, but I'm not, it never was, was, how do you say it, experiencing that or conscious of that. But in the movement from nowhere to somewhere, there is this kind of feeling of being completely reborn, especially when it's a directly movement from you lose your consciousness, gone. It's not dissolving in everything, everywhere, but it's just gone and it's reborn again. And then everything seems to be new, fresh, for a couple of moments at least. So that makes us kind of very, very curious about the nowhere. What is the nowhere? And again, so when we look more deeply into the nowhere and connect it with the whole movement of consciousness, there's so many ways to look at this somewhere, nowhere, and everywhere. But I kind of, link it to the consciousness today. To connect it to the consciousness, when we kind of look to the nowhere, so, and the rebirth, which is there into the somewhere, into basically the here and now. So then the nowhere is connected with, a layer inside ourselves. It's not kind of dissolving outside ourselves, but there is this kind of deep layer inside ourselves, which Nisargadatta called that. It's the potentiality. It's where there is nothing. We are nowhere. And from the nowhere, everything or everywhere is in a way born, but through the somewhere. Because in this being born, this potentiality from which everything is possible, in which we kind of find a new form. And once we find a new form, the first thing what comes forward in finding a form, and we are beyond form. Form is not there anymore. One of the first things which is born is consciousness. And then consciousness basically is connecting or maybe creating form, a new perspective, a new way of relating. And this is interesting because, what makes it a new way of relating? So we are in the nowhere. There is nothing. It's the potentiality. It's the potentiality because every form can come forward from the nowhere. So consciousness is awakened, and it awakens together with certain non-dual qualities. So it could awaken, for instance, with genius. It could awaken with love. It could awaken with care. It could awaken in purity. It could awaken in innocence, or a mixture of all of that. And the moment it awakens together with some non-dual qualities, there is a shift in perspective. There is a kind of liberation. As an example, we kind of experience the world or everything around ourselves in its purity or in its innocence. Or we awaken in this deep feeling and this deep experience of being part of that everything is interdependent, that we belong, we are part of. So basically, when we look to the nowhere and the movement from the nowhere to the somewhere, to the point where consciousness is born, the center from which we are able to be conscious. And of course, this center is interesting because this center, in a way, is an I. It's, I think, the deepest form of identity we have. But the deepest form of identity is not, a form yet. It's not, I've got two hands and I've got hair and I've got a beard. So this is who I am. No, it's before that. It's before the physical form. It's before the personality, the form of our personality. It's before the ego. It's before thoughts. It's a deeper identity, an identity which is so subtle that we often hardly are aware of it. So it's the identity which is created by a little loop which is coming forward the moment that consciousness is born. There is this kind of loop that there is consciousness of consciousness. And this little loop is an I. We are conscious, and we are conscious that we are conscious. And this is needed because pure consciousness, I cannot be conscious of you. It's not possible. It's kind of, there needs to be a reflection of consciousness to be conscious. And this little loop is the deepest I we have. And also, this deepest I disappears now and then, dissolves. It's different from the I of the personality. Then we kind of, say, okay, I am like this and that, and I've got that and that traumas, and that's who I am, and that's how I am, and I cannot change. You have to take me as I am. That's a different I. And it's also a different I from the ego. is what we thrive to be, what we want to be. I'm the best, fuck the rest. Sorry about the F word, but what we pretend to be. And what we also have the tendency to kind of identify with. Because we don't want to identify too much with the personality and all the difficulties we think we have or we don't want to have. So we identify with what we thrive to be. And again, these eyes are very, very loud. So if we let go of these eyes, of the eye of the ego and of the eye of the personality, then comes this deeper eye forward, this deeper eye which is subtle. And somewhere, because it is somewhere. And when we look to this subtle somewhere of the first kind of consciousness of conscious, this awakening of the consciousness, this somewhere could be everywhere. And at the same time, it's nowhere because it has no physical position. But it has a position, it has a location. It's born in space. And of course, when we move into thatness or move beyond that, we move out of space, we move out of time. And that makes it interesting because that could be that our consciousness is, in a way, dependent on space and time. So the question which is there, is conscious there outside space and time? And does it mean that if we are still conscious when we die, let's say we can still have some consciousness or awareness after we die, are we still somewhere connected with space and time? Are we still connected with the universe as we know it, or a certain dimension of this universe? And that kind of, could bring forward the question, if the universe would collapse, doesn't exist anymore, do we still exist? I have not the faintest idea, to be very honest about it. It becomes very philosophical. But we have all the time to think about it because the universe will not collapse tomorrow. Okay, I like to leave it like this. We have a little break, a 5-minute break, and after 5 minutes, Georgie will lead us somewhere.
Hey, and we are back again. Hey, it's lovely to see you all. We're all somewhere and yet, and together and yet in completely different places. And the non-dual somewhere in us greets the non-dual somewhere in you. Okay, so let's consciously find ourselves a comfortable position in which it's possible to turn inside. Trusting the body, that it always seems to give you a location, seems. And we're letting the body relax now. a little bit more. As we allow our attention to turn inside towards that familiar place which you call yourself. As the body relaxes, we are allowing our consciousness to softly open to that familiar place, that well-known space we call ourselves. Let that sense of self expand a little bit. So it's almost as if you're breathing it in and breathing it out. Maybe you can sense the atmosphere in this space where you are here now. We're sensing the atmosphere of the space where we are located inside ourselves. Maybe we can sense the atmosphere of the one that is sensing. How is it that we sense where we are? Allowing ourselves to relax even more easily and deeply now. We're sensing the one which is able to sense where we are. We are sensing the sensor now. We're sensing the one that is sensing. And it's so much easier to do this when we let the body relax even more deeply. As the body is relaxing into this sensuality now, we're going to open up the depth of feeling, feeling where we are. Where are you? We're allowing a feeling connection with where we are inside ourselves. We're noticing how it feels to be here right now, where we are. And we're allowing ourselves to feel how we feel, feeling the one that can feel, the vibration of the feeling. We're opening the depth of our ability to feel where we are. And we're noticing the way we feel, the vibration of that which can feel. Where are we? Right here, right now. Where are you? And let the feeling and the sensing expand now. Expanding in front of us, feeling all the space in front of us. And we're noticing that the one that can feel is also being felt. And now for a moment, it's possible to connect with how it would feel to be nowhere at all. Connecting with the sense and the feeling of being utterly nowhere. We're letting ourselves release and dissolve into the mysterious expanse of being nowhere at all. Not here, not here, not here. Just for a moment, allow yourself to fall into this space of endless nowhereness. Let your thoughts fragment and disappear into nowhere. Our thoughts are bursting like small bubbles into nowhere. And now we can also allow our feelings to expand so far into nowhere that they become nowhere at all. Expanding so far that they disappear into nowhere. Letting ourselves feel and experience what it is to be nowhere at all. And maybe what remains are some physical sensations, some tingling, some tension, some sparks of comfort or discomfort. Let these also sparkle and vanish into nowhere, attending to the backdrop of nowhere. As even our attendance is now dissolving and releasing, like an old stress into nowhereness. And now leaning backwards in time, leaning backwards into the past. I'd like you to remember a memory that seems it will always be with you. A very strong memory, indelible. And feel yourself there, right here, right now, in this location. Notice how your body feels in this location. What can you see around you? How does the air taste in this location? What sounds do you hear inside and outside of yourself? Can you recall any smell or scent of this location? What is the atmosphere of your being here now in this location? Now, as you connect to the one which is able to experience all of this, let yourself be everywhere in this memory. Let yourself be essentially alive in every part of this memory. We're letting our life awaken within the memory, all of it. And just as you are here right now, perhaps it's possible to replace yourself into the perspective of another one in this memory, being somewhere else, from another point of view, perhaps a fly on the wall or another being. Perhaps you can become the light in the room, letting yourself be somewhere new, which you've never been before. We are experiencing this memory from another point of view now. How do you sense the world from here? Can you sense the one that is sensing? Do you feel the atmosphere from here? Can you softly feel the atmosphere of this one that is feeling how we feel? And when you're ready, you can return to your own point of view now. returning to your own point of view, allowing yourself to be somewhere, experiencing it from your own point of view. And how does it feel to be somewhere? How does it feel to be able to feel where you are? Now I'd like you to allow the memory, the whole memory, to begin to dissolve into the big nowhere. Returning to it to nowhere. You find yourself somewhere here now as the one that remembers. Let yourself expand the feeling of being the one which is able to experience. Just for a moment, imagine that the greatest miracle is in being right here, right now, somewhere. The somewhere begins to expand through the body. And the somewhere begins to expand into the space of the room which you are in. And the somewhere is allowed to expand beyond the room where you are, to the place where you are, the neighborhood, to the nature which is around you. Perhaps this somewhere is expanding into the fields of togetherness, where we are here now, somewhere together. We offer the somewhere into the nowhere, and the nowhere into the everywhere, and through the everywhere becoming some. Okay, that brings us to the end of the guided meditation, the first part of this evening. We will continue in the Zoom room, but at this stage we say goodbye to our friends on YouTube, and thank you for joining us. And past, present, future, now, we're always just a thought, less than a thought away. So thank you for joining us.